The ideas, procedures, and suggestions contained within this podcast are not intended as a substitute for consulting with a medical professional. All matters regarding your health and fitness require medical consultation and supervision. Welcome to the Warrior Wellness Podcast, a podcast for military members, veterans, and first responders focusing on fitness, health, nutrition, and biohacking. Our mission with this podcast is to introduce America's heroes to lifestyle habits and hacks that will help them live healthier, happier lives, and in turn, be fit enough to continue their support of their communities and country.
Well, thank you, George Georgilidis, for joining us on the Warrior Wellness Podcast. So we're going to have George introduce himself, talk about his background. But I was really interested in what they do, and especially with all things tech. And Fire Team Whiskey just migrated over to an app in the last year and a half or so. So we are, getting high tech as well. And all of these different, wearables and fitness apps and wellness apps and different devices and stuff. So he knows a lot of things about all of these devices and wearables, and he's going to talk about their product that him and his team put together. So George, if you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Thanks a lot, Stephanie. Excited to be here. So in a very, very high level, my background has been ever since I was very young in healthcare. My family was in physicians for the most part, also in health insurance. So very familiar with the healthcare space from a very young age. I spent a bit of time in the Army myself. I spent time as a professional athlete doing track and field and triathlon. So both with my national team and with NCAA teams. So I've had a very strong exposure to kind of different avenues of the healthcare system itself, and how we can use health data to make our support decisions and support people with their journey to either avoid getting sick, ideally, or if they do get sick, how do they manage their conditions? I've also worked on 2 different medical devices, a pacemaker, and during the COVID pandemic, I wanted to contribute, and with my team, we worked on building a home testing system. So in the event that you were positive, it would connect you to a telecare consultation so that you could kind of understand what your options were and, help you manage the stress of being COVID positive. And I'm also doing a bioinformatics graduate degree at Stanford Medicine. So I'm touching on healthcare from many different places: academically, research, practical, performance. But the big kind of like thing that drives my motivation to build something in healthcare was my own kind of experience with something that happened in my life. And it was a couple of years ago. I went through a pretty significant burnout. So at the time, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what burnout is. It's one of those things where you don't really know until you actually experience it. I went through a period where I was just feeling very unmotivated, very irritable. I felt the need to be isolated, more and more isolated. I'm a very high performing person, so I was always optimizing my physical and mental fitness to get the most out of my day. And I found myself having only 2 productive hours in my day. And I would just be no energy, no motivation to do anything. I just wanted to go home and do nothing. And this, mind you, I also developed social anxiety. Mind you, at a period where, I was meeting with investors all the time. I was traveling in crowded airports. I was meeting in overcrowded venues. So it was like this situation where I felt like I had very little control over what to do. And I had no real objective way to figure out how to get myself out of the situation. And in many ways, that process of discovering by myself, how do I identify these things that are happening in my body in a way that I can fix myself? And finding a system to be objectively driven and data driven is what led me to building Basis. And because I was able to navigate myself out of it, as I was building a system to help me navigate out of it, and many people in my network and people within 2 to 3 degrees of separation started reaching out and trying to find a way to solve their own burnout or other kind of lifestyle management issues. And then we started, looking at many other events that were happening during the pandemic, with an increase in burnout. We have very little separation between work and life now. Work is 24/7, life is 24/7. We had loneliness, isolation, just life became a massive burnout for many people. And in many ways, I think we identified that many more people would probably need something to support them in how do they manage their health, how do they improve their outcomes on their own.
Introducing the new Fireteam Whiskey Fitness and Nutrition app. Everything you need to get fit and lose weight right at your fingertips. Choose from hundreds of fitness videos and fitness plans. Search for workouts by fitness level, equipment available, or body part focus. Choose from several nutrition plans and customize your macros. Your entire fitness, nutrition, and wellness plan all scheduled on your calendar. Text a trainer anytime for tips, tricks, and motivation. Achieve your fitness and health goals with the Fireteam Whiskey app. Go to www.fireteamwhiskey.com to get 2 weeks of results for free.
Yeah, and gosh, yeah, and that's so much to unpack because so let's just start with burnout in particular. I'm kind of fascinated by this because I certainly have I look back and, see certain areas of my life. I'm like you, I'm a high performer, and it's very rare that, I'm not productive, but it has happened, a couple times in my life. And, you guys were inspired by this during the pandemic because of, this obviously was a hugely stressful situation that we were all put into. And, we all kind of had that opportunity to, experience burnout. But you guys say that burnout is kind of an epidemic right now. Is it mainly because of the pandemic and the ongoing, results of that? Or is it kind of a deadly combination of the pandemic and technology just kind of progressing so quickly where it is right now? And like you said, our lives are not compartmentalized anymore, and we have 24-hour access to stress.
Yeah, I think that the pandemic definitely exacerbated the issue, but I think the traction towards it becoming an epidemic was definitely happening way before the pandemic. So it's not necessarily just having access to more technology. It's just the always on mentality that we have. And this, this need of more and more goals to be achieved within a smaller period of time is something that we're not biologically kind of structured to do, but yet we are trying to do it, right? So in many ways, we almost in many ways, self-care has become the third, if not fourth, objective in our life. So our work has consumed us as the number one thing that drives us every single day, followed by our family for the most part. And then depending on, different priorities, like your self-care comes third in that order. And burnout is essentially a chronic, condition of stress. So it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that happens from a period of many months, sometimes years, of kind of ignoring the symptoms and not feeding your body, not nurturing your body, not resting your body in a way that's conducive to our biology, to support it and let it nurture and grow and develop and have like that. Even the immunity itself is severely jeopardized when you're going through burnout. And in my case, my burnout was 6 months of pretty, the symptoms were for 6 months before I could get back to 80%, but I wasn't 100% for 2 years. So it takes a very long time to recover from anything, surgery, right? Any type of traumatic condition takes a very long time for anyone to recover from it. And as you said, as a high performer, it was very hard. There's a massive cognitive dissonance of really I'm dealing with this. Like, how is it possible? Everything I've structured in my life is mental, physical fitness. But yeah, it's many times we're always on, always moving forward, and it doesn't. We don't think of how do we nurture our body, listen to our body, and get back on track, support ourselves in a way that prevents, negative health outcomes.
Yeah, and I thank you for making that point. I love that you just said that because I feel like a broken record, and as a fitness and nutrition coach and a mental health counselor. So I say this all the time. You cannot expect to recover from a trauma or an injury or just, abusing your body for decades in 30 days.
Yeah.
Or, 2 months or 3 months or even 6 months or even a year. It's like, it's silly how like we just have these weird expectations of being able to just bounce right back and be 100% again. And that's not the way the body and the mind works. And unfortunately, when we are experiencing, various levels of burnout, like you said, the things that we should be doing are getting lower and lower on the list to help us recover faster. Right. So, like you said, you had developed like social anxiety, and we know that, isolation is one of the worst things you could possibly do when you need help and support. Right. So you start like putting on the back burner everything that you should be doing, like eating well, sleeping well, getting, good hydration, all that stuff that we know we're supposed to be doing. We put on the back burner when we're stressed out because we just, don't have it in the forefront of our mind, or we just don't have time for it, or we're just not motivated to do it. So I'm so glad that you said that. You can't bounce back instantly. So you and your team kind of decided and identified this need, just like, hey, that we have this kind of burnout epidemic going on, because of all sorts of issues, but, definitely COVID didn't help. And you decided to kind of create a solution to the problem. So talk about BASIS and how that kind of was your solution.
When you look good, you feel good. Guys, it's about time you threw away those stained t-shirts and those baggy, saggy shorts and upgrade your gym swagger. Zaya Active is the official workout wear of Fireteam Whiskey. Go to bit.ly/Zaya FTW and check out all the styles for women, men, and kids.
Sure. So two things that you mentioned, though, that will feed into how we came up with our solution was two things. Like when you are in a heightened stressed or any type of kind of anxious ridden or other type of, just tired state, your executive function, essentially the decision-making process is severely impaired, right? So just the idea of having to figure out what's the right thing to do just doesn't exist. So you are stuck in this like endless loop of like, you need to find a way to get out. The second thing is you mentioned the instant gratification nature of our being. So we're always looking for, okay, I need to get done with this. Like next week I have things to do. I want to get done with this injury because I want to go back to like, training, or I want to get back to like, living my life. But so those two things essentially drive our product development in many ways. So, I mean, I'll before I jump into how we've built it, I want to ask your listeners, how many of them have a wearable? I would wager to say that a fair amount of them do have. Like I think in the United States now we have 50% of US adults have some type of wearable. That's obviously collecting data about their health. But I would also then ask is how many of them are actually using that data in any meaningful way? So we're collecting a lot of data, but either the data is living in silos, but more importantly, besides the silo piece is great. You're collecting at a high sampling rate, different heart rates, your blood pressure, your sleep data. How is that informing your decision day to day? In reality, most of us just have a nice database of our health data that we're not really putting to use every day. And that's where, one of the elements of BASIS comes into play, which is that executive function, that friction of health planning, which involves you understanding what you need every single day, maybe multiple times a day, which most of us just don't have the time to do, yet we need it. So on a very high level, BASIS is there to continuously look at your health data. And in a very simplified form, instead of telling you this is your data and figure out what to do, we tell you what to do. And then we explain to you how we came to that conclusion using your data, if you want to. But the outcome is, again, a bit of instant gratification. Tell me what to do. Don't tell me what I need to figure out to do to improve my sleep, let's say, or how do I improve my activity level. Another key piece. So we've done actually something interesting I wanted to share is like we've spoken to over 1,000 people over the course of the past 12 months, trying to understand how they use their health data, what are their needs, how could we behaviorally influence them to make better decisions every single day of their life. And many of those discussions had to do with just the nature of health habits are very long-term in nature, like the outcomes. You don't really experience the outcomes of eating healthy or exercising for many months, many years, most of the time. So for us, it was, how do we find a way to give you instant gratification in some way? So we found a way to structure most of the decisions that we're trying to drive you towards building better habits, to tie them into things that you could experience today. So for example, how could this meditation increase your energy level today, or increase the length of your sleep or the quality of your sleep tonight? So now you feel that you have a very quick feedback loop that you can impact by making the right decision. And at the same time, you could validate whether this worked the next day. So you build trust in the system in a way that, there's not many, if any, solutions that I've seen out there that address behavioral change in this way. From another standpoint, what we do with Basis is think of, there's this notion about our health, which is always about listening to our body, right? The problem with that is that it's a very delayed feedback loop. So in my case, I went through burnout, but I didn't know about it until many months later that I was being driven to that state. So we do have all this passive data, all this wealth of data today. What if we could put it to use to not just store the data, but actually help you prevent things from happening by always having almost like a little angel on your shoulder that's kind of telling you, hey, Stephanie, this is something that you should do to avoid something, or this is what we recommend you should do to kind of like recover from some level of stress that you've been dealing with. So that drives us into the third big piece of what we're doing with Basis, which is like trying to make it very contextually aware. How many times, I'm not sure what wearables you have or your listeners, but how many times have you gotten a notification to stand up when you're driving on the freeway, right? Or how many times are you told to go and work out when you're like on a plane? Or you're in a meeting and they're telling you to take a few breaths, right? So those kind of things actually drive distrust with technology. And you're like, this thing doesn't work. The truth is we can get a lot of things done with the data we get. But when the context around our life isn't taken into account, that's when our trust in them fails. And that's when you stop caring about what it tells you. And actually, that's the inflection point that most of the people we spoke to said they deleted the product or they stopped using the wearable. So what we've invested in building is understanding through things like your calendar, through your location, through other information that people are willing to give us in order to get better outcomes. We're able to understand, okay, you're in a car right now. You probably shouldn't be standing. Or you have a flight scheduled, or you're in a meeting right now because it's in your calendar. So we're trying to find things to tell you to do that actually make sense in your life. And that's probably the biggest kind of impact of increasing the likelihood that you can actually get things done.
Are you Fire Team ready? Try the Fire Team Whiskey Spec Ops Keto Joe Shake. The Keto Joe Shake is a medium-chain triglyceride MCT shake derived from non-GMO coconut oil. It contains 17 grams of MCT, 10 grams of high-quality whey protein, and no sugar. It's sweetened with stevia leaf, so you can keep those carbs low and shred that body fat. 25 milligrams of caffeine to give you extra energy for the gym or your busy day. Fire Team Whiskey has been supplying military members deployed all over the world with Spec Ops shakes for over 3 years. Fire Team Whiskey Spec Ops shakes are fueling the fight. Whether you are just trying to lose a few pounds or trying to get that extra edge in the gym, the Fire Team Whiskey Spec Ops shakes are for you. Make sure to stock up now and support our efforts to raise funds for Team RWB, our nonprofit partner that provides social support and fitness events for our nation's heroes.
I love that. That is so funny. I mean, that is, anybody who's had a wearable has had that experience and been like, yeah, I don't trust it now because it makes no sense to me. This data is not useful to me right now. So I'm most likely going to ignore the signal the next time I get it because it was worthless to me, a few times. Yeah. I don't know how many times I've gotten my 10,000 steps when I'm like sitting on my butt. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Just because I moved my wrist a couple of times, I got my 10,000 steps? Like, that's silly. So it's not a big, it's like, then I just ignore it. Why would I, look at those signals and care how many steps I'm doing? I'm not checking constantly. Oh, have I made my steps yet? So yeah, that's such a good point and really useful, because then, I talk to my, as a coach and a fitness coach and a nutrition coach, I say all the time, if you're not measuring it, how do you know what you need to change?
Mm-hmm.
So the measuring part is important. The data is important, but what to do with that data is a whole other level. And that's how Basis comes in and is providing that next step for people. Because
Correct.
yeah, okay, you know what, your sleep score was crappy last night. It was in the 60s. Okay. Now what? Your watch doesn't tell you that. Your ring doesn't tell you that. So now you guys are kind of coming in and identifying that need. Like, okay, we've got the data. Let's apply it to real life situations. Let's look what's going on and actually tell you some things that you can do to, get a better score tonight on your sleep. So that's fantastic. I'm so fascinated by that. So right now, what wearables, what devices connect with Basis? What are some of the features right now? And I know it's a work in progress and you guys are still working on it, but kind of give us some information about that.
We integrate with most major wearables. So obviously Apple Watch and the Apple Health ecosystem, Oura Ring, Whoop, Fitbit, Garmin, Suunto, a number of the major wearables, but even beyond wearables, sensors like glucose sensors or things like, peripheral type things like Peloton devices or the 8 Sleep mattress. So all these are things that we can continuously, like real time, passively collect data on your behalf. And of course, things around that contextual layer that we discussed, which is calendars, location. Again, every person has the option to use or to give us or not give us those permissions. They always have the ability to control what they give us, how we use that information. But it really comes down to it. If you want those outcomes to happen automatically, constantly being told in the right context of your life, the benefit is there for something that you're already collecting to put it into better use. So we've integrated with a very large number of devices already. The next frontiers for us are, can we start integrating with, actually the next step for us is genetic data. We're actively working on kind of informing the type of decisions we're giving you on an even more personalized layer based on your genetics, if you have that information. And then there's a number of medical information that you can start integrating in there to make this even more personalized to your life. If you think of 80% of chronic conditions or preventive feedback that you get from doctors, has to do with the trifecta of exercise, nutrition, and sleep. So in many ways, our product is very prescriptive in nature. So we're already working with many doctors on how can we integrate with their own kind of practice to allow them to support their patients much better than just start exercising more, start sleeping a bit more, eat a little bit better, and understanding the outcomes. Which doctors, it's not their fault; they just don't have time to spend on every single patient looking at their data from weeks and months of activity.
Fireteam Whiskey is proud to sell Zaya athletic wear. We love the awesome styles, amazing quick dry technology, and best of all, the price. Zaya Active is the official workout wear of Fireteam Whiskey. Go to bit.ly/ZayaFTW and check out all the styles for women, men, and kids.
Yeah, and does your does Basis give I'm thinking of fitness in particular, does Basis give recommendations for like how much time you should spend in certain heart rates during your exercise based on what your goals are?
Today, we're able to give intensity-based objectives, not heart rate zones. We're giving duration, intensity-based, and type of activities that we recommend. Our goal is to work with other content providers that are already generating these type of activities to kind of support, pre-selecting options that are available for you based on what you actively use. So, for example, you might use a Peloton, you might have a gym membership, and you might like to work out outdoors. So those would be the options that we want to offer you, and kind of curate them based on the type of intensity and the type of activity you should be doing today for what your body needs.
Yeah.
There's no point in reinventing the wheel from the type of, what type of exercise to do. I think there's so much exercise content, fitness content. The problem is that you need to get it curated. It's almost like going to a restaurant and like the menu has like 1,000 options. They're like, great, there's many good options. Which one do I choose? But almost like that indecision is cutting into your actual time that you could be exercising, right? So you have 30 minutes to exercise. You spend 15 minutes trying to figure out what activity to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, and one of my friends who's she's a kinesiologist and chiropractor, and I think she said it best. I don't know if she stole it from somebody else, but I'll quote her. She just says when her patients ask her what kind of workout should they do, she just says, just do the one you are most likely to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we all have different preferences. I'm not going to tell you which one specifically that you need to do, because if you hate it, you're most likely not going to do it. So I'd rather you just do something that you enjoy and you actually will take the time to do it, irregardless of, how many, minutes and what heart rate you should be spending, etc. So, just move your body, I guess would be the answer. Get off your butt.
there's probably just a 50% improvement in health outcomes we could do just from increasing the frequency of doing something positive, right? Like irrespective of how optimized, like just driving you to be able to do the right thing more frequently will probably have a massive influence on your metabolic health, on your mental health, just a number of different, your energy levels every single day, and everything is so interconnected. Your energy levels going down influences your mental health. Your mental health itself influences like the decisions you make in terms of nutrition and movement. So now you're impacting your metabolic fitness. So everything is so interconnected, but it comes down to so frequently the trifecta of exercise, sleep, and nutrition.
Yeah. And, and I'll just throw this idea out there. You should make sure that it just electric shocks you if you go through a drive-through at a fast food.
We'll add that as a nuclear feature for whoever wants.
So for, your beta testing in the future, just add that.
There's really interesting kind of like virtual to physical layers that we can explore. So for example, there's something that we've been exploring for helping you fall asleep that involves delivering vibrations to your phone, to your wearable, kind of like very low vibration. We've been looking into some research around how that can support you falling asleep closer to the time that we've identified as optimal for your body, along with kind of like influencing the lights in your home. Like many people have smart lamps now. There's so many things that you can do that fall into what we're hoping to do, and kind of our mission is to build seamless healthcare. So how can we, if we have this system that's always like that little angel that we discussed on the side of your shoulder, that's kind of directing your life in a way that influences you to make better choices. I mean, we're talking about possibly massive improvements in health span across the board.
Yeah. And the possibilities are endless. Oh my gosh. I'd love to sit in on one of your idea meetings. I mean, it'd just be you must have like a list of ideas that is like a mile long. Because
you're welcome to join. You're welcome to join.
I'm thinking of all these different ideas of what, how you could integrate this. But you're right. I mean, it is about, like I say to my clients, you need to collect the data, and you need to have the data to make these decisions. So if you're not tracking, if you have no wearables, if you are not engaging in these technologies, you're really missing out on a huge advantage that you can have. So, we have been kind of talking about those advantages, but, what do you think is the advantage of somebody who's, utilizing Basis versus somebody who's just doing no tech at all and not really recording any kind of data and just has no awareness of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the number one piece is just the delayed feedback loops. There's just the amount of time it takes. It only takes even if you feel that at any point in time, you're just so self-aware and you're so self-motivated and you're so structured in a way that you feel very confident about your ability to make the right decisions for yourself. Right. I've spoken to many people who at some point in their life felt that way. And I probably, and you probably felt the same way. Right. The thing is, it takes very little for us to get off track. And that off track, we don't have control how long it lasts. I was off track for, many years in terms of my stress levels, which led to a burnout. And again, I was someone that had no lack of kind of education on what I should or shouldn't be doing. Very motivated to do better. Still fell in the trap. And we see it very frequently with people. Like we've spoken to so many, so many of those 1,000 or so people that we've spoken to have shared personal stories of some event that happened in their life that kind of just put them off track. And because of that, it took them such a long time to recover. And just like recovery, we know will take some time. The longer the incident or the accident or the injury is going on for, the longer it will take you to recover. So we're talking about something where the potential negative outcome is so significant that you're putting yourself in a position of very high risk. And why do that when you have the opportunity to, drive decisions and drive kind of have some feedback about whether or not things are going south at some point in your life. It's so simple for, unfortunately, the nature of humanity is we have, big events that happen like a pandemic. Like who even in like your most optimized self could have imagined that something like this could have come around? It influenced everyone, like whoever you are, it influenced you. Some people, it's because something changes in their job environment. Some people, unfortunately, some health outcome happens in your family or yourself. All these things are unpredictable, but almost guaranteed one of them will happen at some point in time, in a short period of time. And we are there, like what we're hoping to be is that system that will support you as you're going through that, but even on an ongoing basis to help you be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. And like you said before, sure, it is sometimes an event, or an injury or, something like COVID, losing your job, whatever, a health incident, or it's more kind of like, I was just thinking about this today, kind of like the boiling pot syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. Most of the time, that's really what's going on. Yeah. It's just small little incremental changes that are happening or, that you're making, you're kind of not eating as healthy and maybe you never ate fast food and now maybe you're doing it 1 time a week and then it turns into 3 and then it turns into you're only eating out, you're not making any of your food anymore. So before you know it, a lot of time has gone by and you've made these major changes and they've made small but really detrimental impacts on your health. And then bam, you just kind of wake up one day and go, how did I get here? Yep. And it didn't happen overnight, but now you're dealing with the consequences of that long-term effect. And if you would have had something like basis in place, it would have been giving you some warnings. Mm-hmm. Hey, your sleep's not doing well. You're not as active as you were. It's giving you some red flags saying, hey, things aren't going well. Here's what you can do to improve.
Correct. And that's
blindly
the key
going
piece.
Down this path.
Correct. And that's the key piece. Here's how you get back on track. Because just letting you know that things are going bad could almost frustrate you even further. But here's like a small action that you can take today to get back on track. And then you build off of that small action. There's just so much around behavioral psychology that we have to take into account when thinking of any type of health solution or health outcome. That's obviously, things like your practice, like things that you're doing where you can understand the individual and you can give them something optimized to their personality. There's also so much that their data themselves can tell us about that individual, about what's going on in their life that we can optimize in real time to give them that support. So yeah, 100%. That boiling pot thing is almost like with everything. Like everything is that motivation thing. The moment that energy is very important in motivation too. So the moment your energy starts waning off, it's the same exact thing where in your mind, you could be in debt. You could be dealing with like very long work hours, but in your mind, you believe in some great outcome. All it takes is for that energy to be influenced or something to trigger a change in your brain. And now you're in a state of like just insane stress and lack of motivation. And you just don't want to, you can't engage in anything. So our mind is very, very powerful in kind of how we deal with progressive chronic things.
Yeah. So George, tell me, before we started recording, you were telling me about some awesome thing that Basis has going on. So people can visit basishealth.io to check out their program and get signed up for that. But you were telling me about some sort of awesome giveaway you're doing.
Yeah, we're excited. So before I mention that, so we're very big on supporting our community. I invite anyone from from your listeners to join us. We have a Discord community. We bring on experts. We have Ask Me Anything. So we cover topics around nutrition, exercise, sleep, supplementation, meditation, other topics as requested from the community. But our community itself also voted for kind of a gift we wanted to give people, one prize for the beginning of the year to get started with health tracking and health optimizing. So we've put together this ultimate health bundle. It's worth a little bit over $3,000. It includes an 8 Sleep Pro cover. It includes an Oura Ring, a Tempo Move, which is a home system for a home gym system. It includes a Headspace, 1 year of Headspace. It includes 1 month of meal planning delivered to your home, and 1 year access to Basis as well.
Wow, that's
so
huge.
People can sign up if they go to basishealth.io/giveaway. They can see all the information about how to join the contest. Essentially, it's just a matter of giving your email so that we can get in touch with you. And we'll be announcing the winner in a live drawing on our Discord server on January 31st. So people can join and see if their name gets pulled out of the list on that day.
Awesome. That is so cool. So definitely make sure when you hear this, go right on over there and sign up for Basis Health so you can qualify to win this prize. So George, thank you so much. That was really informative. And I hope that I wish you all the best of luck in developing this awesome technology. And I can't wait to see what it turns into and the different iterations of it. Thanks so much for coming on the Warrior Wellness Podcast.
Thank you, Stephanie. It was a pleasure to join you. Thanks so much.
Hey guys, thanks so much again for joining us on another episode of the Warrior Wellness Podcast. Please make sure to subscribe, follow, like, all that good stuff on your favorite podcast platform and on our YouTube channel. Go ahead and leave us a review while you're there. And if you screenshot your review, email it to info@fireteamwhiskey.com with your name and address. You'll be entered into our drawing for a prize for just leaving us a review. So let us know what we're doing great, what you'd like to hear more about, and please go ahead and just give us a follow and give us a honest review, especially on iTunes, because that helps us reach other military members, veterans, and first responders with this vitally important information about how to improve their health, fitness, and wellness. We will see you at the next episode of the Warrior Wellness Podcast. I am your podcast host, former Army Captain Stephanie Lincoln, founder of Fire Team Whiskey.